What's up, fellow necromorphs? I finally finished Callisto Protocol, as in for the first time, just the other day. And honestly, I want to rant about my frustrations because, man, this game could have been amazing, but instead subjected itself to mediocrity. Now, I know I'm super late to this discussion. This game came out last December, so a year ago now. No one probably cares anymore, and everyone most likely has forgotten about this game, because it is just that insignificant, truth be told. But my tardiness aside, I still feel the need to express some bitter disappointment. So, I understand that the director for Callisto was the original guy who made Dead Space, and I think I speak for everyone that Dead Space 1 and 2 are fantastic games and in dire need of more love. This game was intended to be a spiritual successor to the franchise, I believe. The problem with that being that this game was competing with an amazing Dead Space 1 remake that was slated to release a month after Callisto, and also that the Callisto Protocol falls short of its predecessor in every single way. After the bad reception this game got, I decided not to purchase it immediately, and instead go for the Dead Space remake, which I did not regret. Fast forward to later this year, and I finally got around to giving Callisto a fair chance, thinking it couldn't be as bad as the reception was saying, and personally, I think it was worse. I had to take multiple breaks while playing this game. It was a genuine chore forcing myself to slowly slog through to completion because Callisto is, for all intents and purposes, boring as fuck. It's the biggest flaw that all the other issues just dogpile onto. The combat is so goddamn awful. Not only is it pathetically easy at best, but repetitive and annoying at worst. The guns are unsatisfying to use, other than the little VATS targeting mechanic, which is kind of cool. But I'm not going to go into depth about the combat and how it works, because, well, this isn't a new game, right? If you're watching this, you probably know the gist of it. Basically, you're reusing all the gameplay mechanics from Dead Space, but worse. And holding left, then right to dodge, left, right, over and over again until the credits. It doesn't help that the enemy variety is extremely lacking. Most enemies work exactly the same with some irritating distinctions between them, like the asshole that spits projectiles constantly. The security robots are unique, but you only get the chance to fight 2 of them the entire game. There's this little long neck guy that is always hidden for you to take some guaranteed damage via QTE, with the game seemingly going, What, you just have to shoot them before getting close. And there's one boss type, besides the final boss, that's just reused like 4 times in the last act, and it's a terrible boss fight. And oh, the final boss sucks ass too, don't worry. The bosses in this game are one-hit kill no matter what, at least on medium difficulty. And then they got the amazing idea to throw grunts at you mid-fight so you can get one shot even easier, with the later one and final boss spawning in these stupid-ass exploding guys that will insta-kill you if they get close enough to grab you while you're not looking. Amazing job, Callisto Protocol, great work! The game is very linear as well, with some side areas you can find. Exploration feels unrewarding though, because it's always unclear what the correct path is, so I often found myself second guessing which path to take so I didn't miss out on anything, optional or otherwise. Usually you just get some cheap ass treasure that fills up an entire inventory space, causing you to manage the tiny amount of inventory you're allotted. There's a half-baked stealth mechanic while crouching that I thought would just be a little trick to get a free kill before fights. But later on in the game, when you get your suit on, they introduce these blind enemies that encourage using the stealth mechanic, which I thought was actually going to be an effective use for stealth since this is supposed to be a horror game after all, and it was. For all of 5 minutes before they completely overuse these segments into the ground without spacing them out at all, making you sick of them as quickly as possible. This game is also not scary in the slightest, despite being a survival horror game. I've been trying very hard not to compare to Dead Space constantly, but that game manages to have good, engaging combat, a better shop system, creepy and intriguing story, and be a scary survival horror experience all at once. Whereas Callisto falls short on every aspect in comparison. The main character, Jacob, has these hallucinations about his dead friend Max throughout the game, and it is always very predictable and not shocking when it happens. The enemy design is not nearly as effective as the traditional necromorphs either. And there's also this one goofy jump scare where a larva jumps out of a loot container and latches onto you. They use it like one time in the beginning of the game, but way later on near the end they must have remembered they haven't overused that asset yet, because they do this little scare 3 times in a row with the containers. I didn't get footage of all 3 of them because I seriously didn't think they would do that. I was literally joking to myself when I opened this one up how ineffective it would be to have yet another larva jump scare. And it actually happened. Hey, don't take my word for it, play the game yourself and you'll see. And by the way, you don't even get anything out of these loot containers if you get this jump scare. Oh yeah, I mentioned the shop earlier because this game's shop is very bare bones. It mainly serves as your upgrade hub, but most of the upgrades are dog shit and useless. You could go the whole game without buying one and it probably wouldn't be noticeable. There are also no health or inventory upgrades, as you just get a buff for both when you get the spacesuit later on, which is weird. And I also was very disappointed to find that a survival horror game revolving around melee combat has all of one melee weapon to use. I thought because we start off with a big wrench pipe and get the stun baton early on, that we would eventually find more weapons later to choose from. Nope. You have to use that lame-ass baton the whole game, and you can't even switch back to the cooler-looking pipe. It sucks. The UI for quick swapping between guns also happens to suck. I've run into a bug a couple times too, where it becomes completely unresponsive and prevents switching. Speaking of bugs, this game still has plenty despite a year's worth of updates. There's one trophy to fully upgrade any weapon, which I obviously have done, I'm in New Game Plus, but on PlayStation there's a known issue that your save data might just glitch this trophy out, preventing you from unlocking it despite multiple weapons maxing out on upgrades. So it seems like I'll never bother getting plat. And this one area later on where a supposedly trapped worker asks you to help him pry open a door also bugged out for me. Enemies are supposed to spawn in and fight you until one of them kills the dude and breaks the door open, but they didn't pop in until I reloaded a save. I ran around like an idiot looking for this guy because it's not clear in the slightest which specific door you're meant to look at. Horribly designed section to begin with, and it doesn't help when your ambiguous objective can't start due to a bug, as one would imagine. None of this crap helps the mediocre storytelling either. The story, and game in general, is very slow. At least it feels that way because it's just so uninteresting. The characters have no emotional weight to them. I don't care about Jacob's guilt or Max's tropey-ass haunting scares at all. And I'm trying not to spoil too much though, mostly because I don't feel like going too in-depth into it honestly. It's the most generic plot and sci-fi horror narrative of all time. Just like everyone else said when the game first came out. You know, I don't have that much to add to it in that regard. I will not be playing any of the DLCs either, as I just don't care. Especially with how trash the ending was. They had the gall to ruin what was setting up to be an actually decent ending with some emotional tension, with a dumbass cliffhanger instead, followed by a jump scare. I'll speak about the characters a little bit. Jacob is okay, and that's about as much as I can say for him. The actors are definitely good though. I like Karen Fukuhara for example, and she does decently as Danny, but they had some poor material here. Elias is also okay. I felt like he had the potential to be really likable, but as soon as they started fleshing him out, he got removed from the story, I'll say. The villains are very one-dimensional cliche characters, but the acting is still fine. You know, I don't know. There's really not much to dissect here in terms of character development. It's just so boring. What actually irks me about this game, though, is its obvious potential. The game looks amazing, for example, with beautiful lighting and cinematography when it feels like trying. I think they were trying too hard to deliver a cinematic experience that they forgot to make an entertaining interactive one, if that makes sense. Like, I think this could have made an excellent movie, just not a good video game. And it sucks too. Everyone is rooting for Callisto to be great, to stand alongside Dead Space, Unfortunately, it just doesn't come close to achieving what those first two games accomplished. But of course, these are all just my opinions. I'm just a dumbass who doesn't know anything about game development, right? I don't think the game is objectively awful or anything. But thanks for listening to me rant and rave about an otherwise irrelevant game, if anyone made it this far. And stay safe, everybody.